coordinators at Waterfire for a couple years, so I have some experience with. This is giving me all the notifications now, Anne.
Just ignore them. I'm monitoring the notifications, okay. CJ, sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, so I was working at Waterfire for a couple years, and if you don't know Waterfire, it's this like gigantic event. It happens a handful of times a year. It's like, by gigantic, I mean like it's a third of a mile long public art and like kind of festival along the river, and it's like hours long, and there's like 60,000 people that come to each one, so it's pretty massive. So that's kind of where I like cut my teeth on big public events, and I was doing other stuff. Like started some just event series kind of on the side for fun, like just community events. And then I worked for 3 years in like bike ped advocacy, transit advocacy with Grow Smart Rhode Island. And then I moved here. So I've got, good sense of like what a good place is, and especially how to do public events and all the like insanity that comes with public space, because it's not always pretty, but I think it's always important. So that's my really quick recap of my resume. And now I'm going to get to the fun stuff. Can we see this okay? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Cool. Great. Yeah, Congress Square Park is in downtown Portland, Maine. This is actually a picture from one of my visits to Portland when I was living in Providence. And this is Congress Square Park. And I keep this on my phone because I just like, I think my instinct to have been walking by, I think I was walking by with a coffee with my partner at the time, and I was just like, we have to go into this park. She was like, why? And I was like, I don't know, but it's colorful and like there's placemaking happening, and all there was this gentleman reading a newspaper, but like we have to go sit here for a few minutes. Like I was just like really genuinely drawn to it. And I think that speaks, and I've heard people say this, like just to the colorful furniture adding a sense of welcoming. And you can just tell it looks like taken care of, like all the furniture is arranged just so, and the umbrellas are all up and it looks sort of organized. And I'll say that's actually a really key piece of what we do, is just like make sure the park looks taken care of. I think it's incredibly important. We have volunteers that come by every morning and evening. I have a couple evening shifts myself, where we like, wipe down the tables and kind of rearrange stuff, and put the umbrellas down at night, put them up in the morning. And I think like seeing it done is important, but I think the really nice part is when people see you doing it, because it looks actively taken care of. And I think that's a big part of why our park is a success. Anyway, just a really quick recap of the Friends and the park is that the building you're seeing, the kind of brick building in the background there toward the right, is the Westin Hotel. And years ago, I think it was like 9 or 10 years ago, the park was not doing great. So this space used to be commercial buildings. And I've heard various stories as to like how derelict they were or whatever, but the city tore them down. And in 1982 built this park. And I will say, you can't see the whole park here, obviously, but it was designed by people that had never designed a park before. And so frankly, they did a really bad job. Like it's not a well-designed space. And we have a redesign that's happening hopefully next summer that will alleviate some of the design flaws of the space. But I mean, it's not in and of itself, it's not going to be a successful park. And so there's this kind of gray pit, and the city like sort of programmed it a little bit, but then gave up pretty quickly. And so as you can imagine, like the space just got worse and worse and less welcoming, and more kind of shunned by the community over the years. And then the hotel was like, hey, we want to build into about 2/3 of the park, so basically about to where the camera is here, like a convention center. We want to privatize the public space and build a convention center, and the city was totally game for it. And so the Friends group formed really to stop that process and to save this as a public space. And it was a whole legal battle. Like, I won't go into it, but I've heard it a million times from all these different people. It was a whole thing. It took a while, and the Friends group narrowly won and saved the space as a public space, but immediately had to pivot to kind of show that it was worth saving in the first place. And so immediately went from, sort of like, let's fight the man kind of team of people to having to be like a programming team. And So they got luckily a grant from the Project for Public Spaces. It's like a placemaking group. If you don't know them, highly recommend looking them up. A lot of good resources. And they basically came in and showed them like how to do placemaking and what to do now. And so, this is what it looks like or looked like a couple years ago with this furniture, but there was like some iteration of furniture right away, and there was some programming right away. And that was, like 8 years ago. So it's kind of evolved over the years, but that's kind of how we got to where we are now. So like since then, Friends of Congress Square Park has really just been doing placemaking. And I think I would say also advocating for the space, like the redesign that's happening. That whole process involved a friends group. So like, they've kind of established ourselves, say themselves, because it was like not me individually, but as experts of the place. And so like, have been giving input as to what it should look like when it's getting redesigned. But aside from that, has just been doing programming. So that's the backstory. So I'll talk about just basically really quickly, like what I've been doing, what we've been doing since I've been here, like lessons that I've learned, and I'm happy to just like chat or take questions or whatever. So all these pictures are taken by me. So they're in the last year and a half. These two are from this season, just to show like, like you might expect, a lot of our program, I would say the half or maybe the bulk of our like big programming is, concerts and films. And so we have this like steel drum group on the left that was playing during First Friday. It was a pretty big hit for us. That's like, it's not a great picture for the crowd, but like that's a decent crowd for us. We have like, I think 50 seats, more give or take, kind of like physical seats. And then we have the steps, and then we have people that stop on the sidewalk, which is my favorite part of our events, is like watching people stumble upon an event and maybe not know about it. And you can always kind of tell. That's what I like to do when we are doing events, is like watch the sidewalk and see people stop with wherever they're going and like hang out for even 30 seconds or 5 minutes and watch. And it's like the beauty of being in an urban environment, especially on a corner like this. So anyway, that's a concert on the left, and we have our films on the right. And you might notice that that's like an old timey looking projector. And we have a partnership this year with a local nonprofit called Nick, and they basically have like this ridiculous reservoir of 16 millimeter films. And so we're doing what we call Silent Movie Sundays, the last Sunday of each month, where they bring their actual 16 millimeter film reel, and we show silent films in the park. And aside from this first one, which was Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times, they're all going to have live accompaniment. And it's based partly on my theory that silent films work better in an urban space, because any background noise doesn't really throw you off from enjoying the film. So this kind of a little bit of like a experiment that I'm just kind of playing out, but it's pretty cool. And people like just to see the novelty of the 16 millimeter film. So we have good turnout for these. People always like, I would say basically like demand that we do like concerts and films. If we stop doing them, it'd be, people would be upset. But
I have one question.
Yeah.
Because I was dealing with this with the community earlier this week. The blow up screen, I heard, is really noisy.
Ours isn't too bad. So like,
Okay.
I mean, you'd have to leave the kind of blower on the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's behind the screen. I don't really notice it all that much. I think maybe if we were in like a very quiet, if we were like in like a big park that was almost like being in the woods, you would definitely notice it. But I think being where we are, it just sort of blends in with the background noise, but it does make noise.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, but I will say it's pretty convenient, because that thing packs into like a little, it's kind of like a large tent bag almost, and then we just put it in our storage container, and it makes it really convenient to do all this stuff. But it does make some noise. But I would say like our biggest bang for our buck, as because the point of what we do is to activate the space, and activating the space doesn't, to me, really mean like concerts and films. Like, yeah, that gets the job done for like an hour and a half or something, but that's not very long, and it's not really creating community, and no one's really like very often talking to each other. It might be part of their date night or something, which is delightful. And like I said, I love when people stumble upon stuff, but I think bringing people into the space and creating a community in the park that cares about the park, that helps it feel loved and not the neglected space that it once was. I think that takes more and more intimate events. And so like I've really put a lot of focus on our smaller, what is called like small gatherings, like frequent small gatherings. And again, these cost no money, right? Like maybe except for like the chess stuff on the right, we own. But that, you know, that's so negligible. And on the left, that's what we call our blurb club. So it's kind of like a book club. You just show up and talk about whatever book you're reading. And it's every other week. And you know, this, what you're seeing there on the left is actually kind of a significant photo, because that was like our accidental 1 year anniversary of Blurb Club, and everybody at that table was there at the first one a year ago. And like they've basically become some of my closest friends, and they've all become friends with each other, and it really has created like a community. And other people of course come to Blurb Club. It's very inclusive, but like it just shows like really the power of doing that. And a lot of these people like donate to the park now or come read at the park almost every day, and so like they are part of, you know, the people in the park that make it feel activated and alive. And it wouldn't have happened if it was a concert series or a movie series or something. And so I
Very
really,
cool.
really believe, yeah, it's worth. And again, it's like it's no money. It's the biggest bang for your buck as far as placemaking and like place attachment without question. We have some other ones this year. One of our park regulars who I just sort of like recruited to be on our programming committee, which I think is another tip that I would give everybody. Like if you have a space or anything, the experts are the people that use the space and are there all the time, and those are the people that care and have the energy to do stuff like this. So one of our now volunteers, Geo, organizes this drumming circle every other week, and this is like half the crowd that was there. I couldn't really get a like good enough picture. It's pretty big, like it's pretty successful, and it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of wacky, and like people love it. Creates a spectacle too, so it kind of does everything at once. It's almost like a concert, but it's really a community gathering. And Geo does a good job of going around and like inviting people who are kind of like eyeballing, you know, hey, come on in and join. And it's really wonderful. So I think it kind of does both the small gathering work and also sort of becomes a little bit of a concert. So it's everything at once. And again, like other than having some drums around, you know, it's no cost, and it doesn't take any like real setup or anything. And you could really do this anywhere. I think one thing that I started up when I started, that to me has really been the most bang for your buck, even though it's a lot of work, is our market series. This is actually from last year because I just like this photo, but we started it doing once a month, and it was so successful that we now did them every other Sunday instead of one Sunday a month. And we get about, you know, like I think we get like 16 to 18 vendors that I like comfortably put in the park at each one. And we could cram a lot more in. But I'm really big on letting the park be a park. And we have a lot of people that, you know, this is their backyard, basically. Like there's a lot of housing nearby where people don't have patios or a yard or whatever. And so like they're in the park a lot. It's their backyard space. And so I leave a good like third or more of the park to not be full of vendors, because I want people to be able to people watch and still eat a sandwich or drink coffee or just like hang out and talk. And I have like a playlist going, but it's pretty quiet. And so it feels activated, and there's so much good people watching, and you can shop or you can just like talk to vendors or whatever, but it doesn't cost anything obviously to just enjoy the market. And again, I really put a lot of emphasis on just letting it feel like an activated space rather than like an event that's taking over the whole park. And I think it's like the best of both worlds as far as human interaction that you can get in like a more passive event, and also still like giving you something to really do. So it's again, it's like a lot of work. Like this really has become a lot of my work week is organizing the markets, but I think it's the biggest bang for our buck. And even the vendors have become like attached to the space, like they become donors, they've become people that use the park more, and like that's something that I think maybe isn't thought about, that like they're also your constituency if you're going to do something like this. Like they're also park users. And this past winter, for the first time, we did winter programming, like real significant winter programming. And to keep up with the small gatherings thing, you can tell that I'm really into. I wanted to do s'mores nights. So we bought 3 fire pits. You know, they were like what, like $100 and some a piece or whatever. And there's propane. Got 3 fire pits, kept like stocking up. We did them once a week. We kept stocking up on you know, like your s'mores fixins and stuff. And it was all free, like all the s'mores stuff was free. And then I recruited a food vendor that we've partnered with a lot, called the Pink Waffle, and they do waffles, and they would bring like waffle treats and like coffee and hot chocolate and stuff. So you could buy that stuff, but you could just come and get, you know, free s'mores and come and hang out. And it really did, it was amazing. Like these people knew each other, but this is like exemplary of, like, I would see people interacting like this who arrived as strangers, and they would sit around, you know, you're kind of like, you're close, you're not like shoulder to shoulder, but you end up talking with all sorts of people. And a lot of our like unhoused park regulars met other folks, and just like everybody was talking with everybody, and it was really like, it was really truly incredible to see. And it was every week this would happen. And you know, again, like not something that's really going to happen at a concert or a movie as likely. And you just sort of like are creating community just by literally just bringing people together, giving us something to do. And people, I mean, I've never received more like thanks for an event series that we did than this. I think people were just so glad to get out of the house. And again, like super low cost. I mean, having the Pink Waffle there was great, but you know, like for a few $100, you can buy all the stuff you need for like the whole winter and just do it as often as you'd like. And we put the fire pits away every night and brought them back out. We had to refill the propane every, I don't know, few weeks or something, but you know, it's pretty negligible too, really, in the grand scheme of things. So these were like tremendously successful. And I just want to, the other winter event that we did one winter market. It was like a holiday market. We kind of debuted the fire pits at this, put an emphasis on food, like in an effort to sort of like replicate the European Christmas markets. Obviously, it doesn't look anything like that, but like at least the kind of content of what was here is more like that. So there's a couple of shots of that, but you can see the fire pits going, and you can see people shopping and also just like hanging out, which I think again is like why I love markets so much. And my favorite pick from the winter market, if this will cooperate, is this one, just because yeah, people are shopping, but this dude just comes and reads the book by the fire pit. And this is why I love the market so freaking much. Like you can do that comfortably, and you can also shop. It's everything at once. Like it's still such a public space. It's not just, you know, a shopping mall. Like it's not just for commerce. And so this just really delighted me to see this guy like arrive with a book purposefully to like, I'm gonna go sit by the fire pit and people watch and read. He I feel like we'd be friends, me and this guy. And just a couple more slides. So aside from events, I've talked a lot about events, which is a lot of what we're known for, but we also, you know, just like maintain the park. So on the left was our planting day from this year. We had the wooden planters built last year, made to withstand the winter, and you can see they look pretty good. Like those were out all winter long. This past winter.
And they on wheels, CJ?
Yeah, they're on
Yeah.
wheels. I will say the wheels that we put on were way too small, and so they're like insane to push around because they're completely full of dirt. They're like, I don't know how many pounds they are, but they're wildly heavy. But yeah, they're on wheels, so we can move them around for events and stuff. But even these like create, you know, everyone here lives within like a couple blocks of the park, and these are the people that care enough to like show up on volunteer days and come get their hands dirty, very literally. And on the right, I just want to show we had installed a little free library that we had built locally, custom built to kind of look sort of like our benches with some of our colors. And it's meant to be both for books, but also very much for, you know, again, we have a lot of like unhoused folks that use the park and help take care of the park, I will say. And so a lot of times people put in like socks or, you know, snacks or deodorant, or like whatever, and we encourage that a lot. In all our messaging, we include like it's not just for books. And the people you're seeing using that, the reason I love this picture is that's Cecily and her daughter. Cecily owns the restaurant next door to the park. And, you know, like, I just want to throw that in there because our being in an urban space, like some of our most important neighbors are our business community, and both on like a professional and a personal level, it's nice to see them sort of like connect with the space. And so she and her partner and their kid come out to like events, and just, you know, they're great neighbors, and seeing them like go through the library was sort of a nice little, like, I sort of spied and took that picture. So this is my last slide. This looks like something that I organized or planned, and it's not, and that's why I love this so much. So I came by in the morning to like set up our little chalkboard sign for an event later that day, and this is a coffee cart, Cafe La Mega, that come to the park sometimes, and they had come and set up, and two vendors, just on just a random Sunday, they just like message on Instagram, and they're like, hey, is it okay if we come and just set up in the park? And I was like, yeah, like, of course, you know, again, like, activating the space is what we do. And so this was it. Like, again, it looks like something that I organized, but it's not. It's just people recognizing the space as active and vibrant, and like, this to me is the biggest success. Like, when we don't have to do the work, the community does the programming basically on its own. And so there's almost like a mini pop-up market, just because we're good at what we do and people like the park and use the park. And it just really was delightful. And so I went, this is like the goal, is to not have to do any of it ourselves, right? So
one second, I know Dave has to leave for a meeting, and I was going to see if he had a question, and he just put in the chat. You want to ask it, Dave?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't even interrupt CJ.
No, it's okay.
It's really amazing to see the passion. And speaking of activating spaces, I have to go meet with police and fire to talk through some logistics of a thing we're having. But I wanted to ask a question because, again, I knew this kind of talk was coming, and I've been working for the last 2 months to try and activate an underutilized kind of space where right now it's looked at as a place where kids like go just to like smoke weed, but it's a great space that it could be transformed, and it's technically city property. And so I've gotten permission from the city council to turn it into a pocket park, and I'm working through that. But the thing that I keep running into is every time we have an idea for something, it turns into a liability issue, right? So like, I had like a local brewery that we were trying to turn it into like a beer garden. City approved it, but then it was like, whose liability is on that? Like, I got volunteers to build a temporary stage and partner with the local community radio station to bring artists in. It's like, well, whose liability is it if somebody falls off the stage? And so I keep hitting these roadblocks on liability. And I just got a quote to have the beer garden. It's $22,000 in liability insurance because of like, they're quoting every single day of the pocket park being opened as like a special event. So that was, I know I'm kind of rambling because I'm trying to rush this, but just like, I have all the permission to do everything I want to do, and the only roadblock I run into is like, nobody wants to carry the liability for all this stuff. How have you kind of addressed that? Who carries the liability risk when you do things in the public space?
That's a great question, and that sucks that you're running into that. Well, we have insurance policies that cover us. It's nowhere near that much money. I mean, ours is like, you know, all the various insurances, including like our internal organizational insurance, like a couple $1,000s a year. And we have the city as like a co-insured. And they have with us, we have an MOU with them that really allows us to bypass a lot of like permits and stuff that we'd otherwise have to get, which is really incredible. Like they basically give us a festival permit so that from like the whole year, we sort of have dibs on the park. It's considered like one long event rather than like a million, you know, concerts and etc., which helps a lot. But I mean, part of it is, you know, we don't have alcohol. I know that can like really change the game a lot. But we do, yeah, I mean, our insurance does cover, I'm not like too adept at what our, you know, insurance policies and stuff like that, but it does cover, you know, like our artists and things like that as well under
I think it's probably the MOU with the city allows them, like you said, they're the co-insured. So that's a part of the thing. I'm wondering whether you two, CJ and Dave, can connect, because maybe Dave, you could talk to CJ's insurance and just say, can you tell me about this, or get a copy of the MOU? And it might be the alcohol that's the trigger. I don't know. I mean, you all of you Main Streets and affiliates have these large events. Some of them include alcohol, like Melissa's Swine and Stein. So I don't know. I'm trying
no, just to close the loop. Yeah. So for instance, I have alcohol at this event I'm throwing next Saturday, but you apply for, like, I know how to apply with state for a temporary, like, you know what I mean, liquor license kind of thing. It's when you're talking about having a park open and having alcohol, we're trying to figure out, like, anyways, it's that piece, but it's also the, it would be good to explore the MOU, because we do it for events like next Saturday. The city's like, yeah, you own downtown, you do whatever you want, it's on you. But if we're talking about a long-term thing over the course of the year, how do you handle that liability? And I'm like, our insurance company's been calling around trying to get quotes. Most people won't even touch it. The other quotes that we're getting are, like I said, 18,000 or 22,000. So I don't want to dominate the conversation. That's helpful feedback.
It's a great question, and I do think there's a solution that's not $22,000. I really do believe that, based on all of your work and how you do temporary festivals, or in the case of Portland, they're basically saying that's a festival for 365 days a year, and they have worked it into their system. So I think it just takes a little bit of creative thinking.
Yeah, because my fear is everybody keeps saying, hey, it seems like there's a lot going on. Let's pause, let's work on it for 6 months, and then let's have it for next year. And I know, like, I'm going to lose momentum. Like, I have city council approval, I have momentum now. I don't want to press pause till next summer and lose all this. It's taken a year and a half to get permission to like take over the park.
Yeah.
David, give me a call. I've got a contact for you, which will absolutely, it will help you out tremendously. So call me.
Yay, Deb.
All right, I will, Deb. Thank you. So sorry I have to jump. This is great, and I'm glad to hear Bill was great. I can give
Thanks
some
for
feedback.
coming, Dave. We'll catch up soon.
Yep. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Sorry to rush you at the end, CJ. I wanted to make sure Dave got.
I was probably rambling a lot, so I don't know how long I was. Sorry.
Oh, I don't know either. But what other questions do you guys have for CJ? It was really cool to see the rolling planters and the rolling, like, seats and tables that could work as both, like some of those. And I loved you had different types of seating. You had little metal chairs, you had Adirondack chairs, you have those, again, things that do lots of tables and benches. And
yeah, I want to, just on that note, just really, like, I have big feelings about seating, and like, I mean, movables, we have benches that don't really move. Those are great, especially like in a row. Those are super useful. Movable seating changes the game completely. Having our Adirondacks, they're super popular. And in our marketing for our markets, I actually have a picture of an Adirondack, because I feel like people recognize that we have them, and it's like, oh yeah, Congress Square Park has those. But also it gives the vibe of, like, you can just lounge in an Adirondack at this market. You don't have to shop. Like, there's not a shopping bag as the logo. It's an Adirondack there. But the movable, like, flat benches, I've seen, like, literally an entire Mecca class from Maine College of Art and Design, like 12, 15 people, like, crammed onto one, like, sitting in a crazy fashion. And like, they really lend them, like, weird shapes and stuff for seating lend themselves a lot to just like getting creative with how you want to sit and use an object.
Well, the cool thing with the sharp angles is that you can make squares, you can make L's, you can make zigzags. Like, it is a really cool design of a type of seating. I agree.
Yeah, they're great. So
yeah. Ross has a question.
I do. CJ, thank you so much. Great presentation. We in Lisbon have, over the last couple of years, acquired a waterfront space that is currently a blank slate. There has been some movement in Lisbon from some other folks to have a pair of 3-story apartment buildings go up there. And there has been a group that was formed to sort of protest that. So the whole thing is sort of in works. But one of the things I'm being asked is there data out there, and maybe Main Street Bath can help, but is there data out there about how the effect of gatherings like concerts, et cetera, dramatically affects the local businesses? I've done some Googling, but I can't find any statistics that say when you have an event with 500 people, your business is increased by 10% locally. And some of the analysts we've had say, a park is just a park, it has no economic impact.
Oh.
And I know that's not true. So I'd love to be able to provide some folks with some factual data. And I sent you a quick note. I'd love to get connected to the placemaking people as well to sort of help with that. But fantastic presentation, great ideas. And I'll just open it up for responses.
Yeah, just one couple things. Project for Public Spaces is throughout all our materials and also through, I mean, I can send you the link, as can CJ Ross. It's it's a great, credible organization. And sometimes they have little mini grants. And then I will let CJ talk to the economic impact. I can totally dig for that for you as well through National Main Street. But CJ, you may have some very specific data that you use.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can be pretty confident that PPS, Project for Public Spaces, would
Yes.
have like some case studies and some data on that, or at least link to some. They're good about sharing other people's data as well. I like, the one thing that strikes me though is that like it's going to be different every single time. Like an event, you know, can do a better or worse job, right? Like if you partner with downtown businesses, they're going to get more business than if you just had an event in which you didn't partner, or you didn't, you know, like sponsor, you didn't make that a focal point of the event. Depends where your public space is in relation to the businesses. Ours is surrounded by businesses. So like I know that woman Cecily, her restaurant Friends and Family next door, I know they get more business during our events, but they're literally next door. Like their seating is partly in the park. So like it really depends. I think the devil's in the details in that one. But like I'm confident there's a ton of data to back this up from various case studies that again like will be on that spectrum of how good a job they did in relation to businesses. It's gonna look different in like a space like ours than in a park that's like a quarter mile from the nearest business, or even 100 yards from the nearest business. But anecdotally, like there's no question that it makes a tremendous impact, and depends how big your events are, of course, but like it makes a tremendous impact. I'm sure that PPS has good data for you.
The follow-on question, sorry to interrupt, is I love the ideas of tables and chairs and umbrellas that are just basic metal and not very, they're protected by the weather and all that stuff. You guys go in and take those umbrellas down and put them up every morning. Is there vandalism worries? Are there things like that?
Great question. So we used to lock the tables and chairs up, or I think, or put them away, one or the other, like a few years ago, and haven't in 2 or 3 years or whatever. And in that time, literally nothing has happened to any of them at all. And that's always the community's biggest concern. And I think it's overblown tremendously. And I think it also is worth any loss that you have just by showing the community that you're serving that you trust them and that this is theirs too. And they're not borrowing it from you. It's also theirs. I think it makes a tremendous impact, and actually makes it less likely when they see that trust that they're going to damage this stuff in the first place. I mean, that said, there's like wear and tear and stuff like that, but there's literally been zero intentional damage done since, at least in the past like 2 or 3 years. But there's various ways to do it. Like you don't need, the umbrellas are great. They're like the biggest liability because if it's windy, we have to go like, make sure to put them down and stuff. I think they're worth it in a space like ours that doesn't have a lot of tree cover, but if you had tree cover, you might not need those. There's different kinds of movable chairs that are like, if your concern is how easy it is to like walk off with them, you can get heavier ones or, whatever. So there's like a lot of different ways to it, but I really am passionate about not locking them up and putting them away if you can help it.
Amy.
I was just, hi CJ. I actually live right around the corner from Congress Square Park, and
She's roasted marshmallows.
I've roasted marshmallows, and there's been a huge transformation of the park. The place was not a nice place to be for many years. So it's a visible and positive place now. So thank you. I work in Westbrook, and we have a pocket park that the city is now renovating. And when it's done, they're going to ask us to help program it. And so there is some money, but I'm wondering What are the resources that you use to help fund what you do? And also, where do you get all those nice chairs and benches?
Great questions. Well, the benches and chairs, I can, if you want to email me, I can like even send you links to the literal, source and stuff. I think they're from a company called Furmob.
Hmm.
It's bizarre. I think it's a French company. If you follow like a lot of placemaking groups on Instagram, like I do, you'll notice that a lot of organizations use the same ones.
Firm ob.
I think I believe it's FERMOB,
Okay.
or as close to that.
Okay.
They're not dirt cheap, but I think they're really worth it. There's again, there's a whole spectrum of like types and quality and stuff and price. Happy to email about that anytime. As far as it's a good question as far as like funding this stuff. I mean, like as a small nonprofit, like this is what we do. And so our grants and our like business sponsorships and our donations really go toward basically like paying our performers and artists, and then like paying for all the stuff, the equipment, the permitting, the furniture, the repairs, all that stuff. So like that's really where it comes from. But a good example I think of like where you can just do something and pull it out of your hat is like our winter programming was again a new idea, and it wasn't built into our budget, right? So like I specifically went out and recruited a couple businesses locally to sponsor just the winter programming, and we raised like, I don't know, it was like $2,500 or something, through a few like, I think a couple sponsorships were like $1,000, and then like friends and family, the restaurant next door, kicked in $500, and we put their logo on some signage and stuff. But I just like found people that were interested in the idea of winter programming and thought it was a good idea and were willing to help make it happen. And without those sponsorships, we probably wouldn't have been able to do it in the first place. And now we have all the stuff, and we can keep doing it, kind of like indefinitely, with a little bit of money to keep buying like marshmallows and that stuff. But I mean, that's a good place to start. And I think again, like the first question is like, what's my biggest bang for my buck? What are my resources? So like those kinds of things aren't that expensive, but even less expensive, if you have like kind of a small pocket park, like again, the like a drumming circle type thing or a chess club thing. The chess group, by the way, meets every Saturday.
Yes.
And like it really is like you could get all the stuff you need for like next to nothing, or people just have it in their homes. It can be literally $0, and it just makes the biggest impact. Like once you start showing people that something's going on in this space and give them a reason to go there, no matter what it is, whether it's a concert, or just like you recruit someone to like busk, make a formal concert out of it, or you do a chess thing, like you can really, there's a whole wide range of ways to go as far as like resources that you have or don't have. But again, I
also
see
think
big
there's
bang for your buck is just small gatherings.
Yeah, and I also think there's a necessity. I know Biddeford looked into this at one point, and maybe Saco, of some of these smaller spaces within main streets, that it does help to have like an MOU or an LOA with the city, right? To say, well, like, this is what we will do, this is what we can do, or this is what this would cost. Like, it'd be fascinating to get clarity from Westbrook to say, do you want us to be a Congress Square Park? Because your park, Amy, is a pretty good sized park that's going to need programming, or and so the city can't just think that doesn't cost anything. Like there's a lot, even though I know CJ's doing it like totally minimalistic and making it work incredibly scrappily in the best way. I just think there's a reality of what it costs to program a space that big, and like how big do they want to do that? And I know in my files I have some examples of MOUs of kind of between the park and like how you, the performer, gets to go there, or you, the wedding party, who wants to rent it to have their wedding or whatever. I mean, I have some paperwork, I'm sure CJ does too. And I just want to acknowledge Christina put 2 photographs in the chat. And for those of you that were in Skowhegan at our last director's retreat in person, so Amanda, it was like your first week of work, right? Or something. So it was way back in the winter of was it 2019, right before the pandemic? Anyway, we looked at this lot, Christina, didn't we? And we were like, this is a dead space. And look at it. It's beautiful. Those 2 photographs are awesome.
Yeah, so we just did this in May, middle of May, and we got a grant from the National Association of Realtors through the Kennebec Valley Board of Realtors. And there was actually a Build Maine suggestion. So we went and we got $5,000 from them to actually buy these picnic tables, 6 Adirondack chairs. Actually, those were even donated by a local, by one of our select board members.
Right.
Lights, planters, I had budgeted money to buy some cameras, and those will be coming, but this is currently cameraed by the building that is adjacent to it. And so right now we don't have anything tied down, and nothing, I don't want to jinx myself, but knock on wood, nothing has happened to it. And we had the beer garden for Build Maine in there, and people loved the space. And last weekend there was a mural opening or unveiling, because there's a new mural back there as well. And we had a bunch of people out there for that. So it's been a huge success for us. People seem to really love it. And I'm trying to figure out how we put the games out there without me having to go every single day and put them in and out. So CJ, I love your willingness to be there in the evenings and on Sundays, but I work enough. I don't need to be there all the time. So it's like trying to figure out the balance of how we make that happen. But yeah, I'm super excited that we were able to make this space into something far nicer than an ugly parking lot. So
I will say our chess meetup, like we have the chess things in our little storage container, but there was a guy that we basically have a volunteer that like basically runs those. Like he shows up, I give him a key to the container because again, like I believe in trusting people as much as my heart lets me,
Mhm.
And like so he just, I don't have to do any of that. He just shows up and unlocks it and puts the games out, and he's there playing. So like if you can find, depending on what your games are and stuff, like you can find a system that works with the right passionate personnel.
Interesting. The business that's adjacent to it is called Unwind, and we had the beer garden out there on Wednesday. I walked in there afterwards and she's like, can we have a block party here every week? And I was like, God. But she might be willing to actually unlock and lock a games thing, because it's literally like 20 feet from her outdoor seating space. And so people could, and we're trying to figure out a potential liquor license change for her to be able to capture that whole space. So that's kind of something we're working on too. But
yeah, well, that's a great resource, because there's a bookshop like basically next door to us called Yes Books, and they have like under their counter just like backup chess boards and pieces for our chess games. So like people know if that guy doesn't show up that has the key and I'm not there, like they can just go over to Yes Books and get a couple, and they're open anyway during the hours of the chess, the chess games or whatever. So like that's another option. Maybe they can just like store them and just be the place that you pick up and drop off the games.
Oh, that's a good idea. I'll have to talk to Billy about that. She might be down for that too. So cool. Thanks.
Cara also put a link in the chat to their newest blog post, which I had just read last night about a pocket park in Ellsworth. So like I said, I know you guys are all doing this work. I just thought it would be really fun to have CJ join us as we kick off summer. And a lot of you are dealing with new spaces. Melissa, my God, you have like 2 possible or 3 possible spaces for this type of activation in Gardner. So anyway, that was the purpose. Any last minute questions for CJ, or I'll let him go and just see if we have any. Cara.
I just have one quick question, and I think it was sort of addressed, but I did just want to ask CJ about vendor licenses. Do you guys offer any sort of help with vendors who maybe just passing on the license from the city of Ellsworth? From the city of Portland, like a lot of people I find just don't know. And we find often that we're sort of helping the community because they don't necessarily feel comfortable or know where to go in City Hall. And do you folks offer that kind of service and helping them with the links and things like that? Or
it's a great question. I would be so happy to if we had to, but amazingly our festival permit with the city basically allows us to like host all kinds of vendors, and like they basically get to bypass a lot of what would cost them some money. Like we're even so like in Portland, you can, if you're an artist or a maker, you don't need any kind of a license unless you're like infringing on some other event or something like that, I think. But like if you're operating in a public space, you don't need that. But if you're a store, you would, right? Like if you're a brick and mortar, you normally would. But it somehow like fits within the language of the festival permitting in Portland, where like we're able to have, again, friends and family set up at that winter market. They had a table, and they were able to not have to get a permit for that, which I think normally is like, I forget how much it is. It's not cheap for even like one day. So that's a huge help for us. Yeah, I can't overstate how valuable the festival permit is in like saving headaches and saving people money and saving vendors money and stuff like that.
And just to clarify too, the festival permit that you have 365 days a year is only for that location, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
for us within the boundaries of the park. Yeah.
I put CJ's email in the chat because I had rushed his last slide that had his, I think it had your Instagram. What else did it have on there?
It did, and I mistyped our URL really.
Oh, well, okay. Well, you can type it again in the chat. Thanks, Melissa. She said in Gardner, their event permits include our own management of vendors. So CJ, thank you so much for joining us. I think you might be hearing from a few people. I really appreciate your time this morning. And, you know, joining one of our optional monthly Zooms with our Main Streets and affiliates.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me ramble on.
Yeah, and you should visit all these communities, as you know. And CJ
Yeah.
was one of our statewide partners in our Jane's Walk. It was Portland Downtown, Greater Portland Landmarks, Name Preservation, CJ, Friends of Congress Square Park, and Downtown Center. So it was fun to get to know CJ, and that's why I was like, oh, I want him to talk to you guys. So really appreciate you coming and sharing all these amazing ideas, and we'll let you get on your way.
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Email anytime. Happy to chat.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, CJ. So we only have like a short 4 minutes today, which isn't normal, but I didn't want to cut off the conversation with CJ because I thought it was really good. And sometimes our guests have finished what they're doing and we have lots of open conversation, and today it's the other way around. So a couple things. As I said, just really big staff transitions at MDF right now. So I am, Perry was here, but she had to leave to another meeting. Perry and I are holding down the fort, and that's a lot right now. So it's going to be that way for the next 6 months. Christina, were you going to say something?
Well, I just wonder if this is a reflection of maybe needing to have some outside voices come to your defense, or I don't know what my impression is that MDF could treat you all better. And that is something that I'm willing to sign on to some sort of a letter if this group wanted to do that. You guys need to be supported and treated well and paid well. And if, you know, we're doing great work in this, you know, state, and without your help, you know, some of that will definitely fall off. So
I mean, it does seem like the perfect storm. Like, I hear you. And from the outside looking in, I'm sure some of you are like, wow, that must be a really bad place to work. And I do want to say, you know, of the 3 staff people that are leaving, I do really believe that like 2 are going to be happier in another organization. And the other one just had an opportunity that was really good. And the extended medical leave, the 4th team member, like that just happened. So it is completely chaos. I would say I do feel really strong and supported right now in that I've basically said to MDF, like, I can't get my normal work done for the next 6 months. But my concern, of course, is that impacts my ability to provide services and help to all of you guys. So it is like I totally always appreciate what you're saying, Christina. Like, I really do. And if I felt like I needed that, I would reach out to you. Okay. I generally feel like MDF is being incredibly understanding of this chapter. They have given us the 4th of July week off as like a little bonus. You know, I personally am going to be out of the office for 2 weeks and actually turning off my email, which I haven't done in 7 years, and our family is going away. not just driving to New Hampshire. So I do feel supported right now, but I just can't sit here and say like, oh yeah, it's life is normal, guys. I'll be really regularly getting back to you like I do, which is pretty regularly. It's a little chaotic. I do want you guys to know that Michael is going to participate in the program director interviews, representing the advisory council and also representing our main streets. So he will be doing the 3 final interviews over the next couple weeks for the person that will be taking Joanna's place. So I did ask him to do that, and thank you, Michael, so much for agreeing to do that. So I totally appreciate it, but I'm not feeling that right now. I actually feel pretty empowered because I just say, nope, that's not possible to do that right now, MDF.
Okay.
We have a number of funding sources pending that will require even more staffing up, but at the moment we're just trying to get kind of stabilized and backfilled and get our team back in order. Ideally, at the downtown center, there will be 2 full-time people, and there will be Perry, hopefully, moving full-time. I mean, that would be amazing if there were 3 of us working with our 24 communities as opposed to 1.75, which is what it's been for a long time. So I've also said that out loud. So in addition to like transition and chaos, I'm like trying to strengthen the ability to do better for you guys. So stand by and I'll let you know, but so far, okay. Anyway, that's pretty much it from me, but I do not want to say to you, don't call me, I can't call you back. Please do get in touch with me. I will figure out how to get back to you and get you what you need, or if it's something from today or whatever. So any other like last minute questions, throw things in the chat. We are scheduled to meet in July again. It had been a couple months because of the national conference, but it was so great to have a good turnout this morning. So thank you all for coming. Trisha, thanks for joining since you're new on the board in Hollowell. Anything else from you guys?
Do you have like 2 minutes to stay on with me after